Hello everyone, welcome to course study on solid mechanics. Today we are going to start a new unit, that is unit number 3, and the title of this unit is bending and shear stresses. Remember that part A is the part of bending stresses and part B is the part of shear stresses. Before proceeding for actual unit, we will discuss about the introductory part of this unit. Now, what is bending stresses? Remember that bending stresses are always developed in the case of flexural member, and that flexural member is nothing but a beam. Now, what is beam? A beam is a structural member which is subjected to loads that act transversely to the longitudinal axis of this member. Due to that load, the effect of bending moment and the shear forces takes place, and that undergoes a certain deformation. For example, if I consider a beam, this is a beam which is simply supported on two support. It is subjected to an external load, and that external load is UDL. It is subjected to the external load UDL. This horizontal dotted line is nothing but it's a neutral axis of the member. It is nothing but the neutral axis of the member. Then, as per the definition of beam, it is a structural member which is simply supported over the two support, and it is subjected to the external load. That external load, it acts transversely to the longitudinal axis of the beam. Therefore, this external load UDL will act transversely, means it will make an angle of 90 degree with the longitudinal axis of the beam. This is the longitudinal axis of the beam, and the external load will act transversely to it. The effect of those external load is the bending moment, as shown in this figure. The bending moment and the shear forces will develop, and due to that the certain deformation will take place. If the external force is the shearing force, then the internal resistance will be the shear stress, and if the external load is the bending moment, then the internal resistance will be in the form of tensile and the compressive stresses in the member. These tensile and compressive stresses are called as bending stresses. It is also known as longitudinal stresses. Bending stresses, or it is also known as longitudinal stresses. Now, from this figure, you can see that this dotted line is nothing but the neutral axis of the beam. We have discussed to here also, this is the original shape of the beam, and after it is subjected to UDL, the deformed shape is as shown in this figure. This is the deformed shape of the beam. This dotted line is nothing but the neutral axis of the beam. The portion which is above the neutral axis is known as the compression zone, and the portion which is below the neutral axis is known as tension zone. Above the neutral axis, that particular portion, it is subjected to the compressive stresses, and below the neutral axis the portion is subjected to the tensile stresses. This rectangular section is nothing but it is the cross section of the beam, which has a width B and depth D. This is the general concept of bending stresses and the definition of beam. Remember that a beam, it is a structural member which is subjected to the load, external load. Now in this case it is UDL, and this is the longitudinal axis of the beam, which is subjected to external load, and that load acts transversely to the longitudinal axis of the beam. Due to that, the bending and the shear stresses takes place into it. Now we will discuss the concept of bending moment. What is bending moment? Bending moment is the internal resistance moment to counteract the external bending moment. Remember that in short, bending moment is nothing but it's an internal resistance moment to counteract the external bending moment. And mathematically, it is nothing but it is equal to the algebraic sum of moment of the load acting on one side of the section. Mathematically, bending moment can be calculated by the algebraic sum of all the external moment which are acting on either side of the section. It may be a left hand side or it may be a right hand side. For example, we will consider a beam. This is a beam which is cut into two parts. This MN is nothing but the section which will cut the beam in two parts. This part is the left hand part and this part is the right hand part. If I concentrate on left hand part, then this is a force to which it is subjected, and if it is subjected to the external bending moment also, it is M. This force P, suppose it is a P which is separated by a distance x from the section MN. Then the bending moment, the definition of bending moment will be, from this figure, bending moment is nothing but this M which is acting in clockwise direction will produce the bending effect into the section. Then that clockwise moment will be considered as a positive, and this is M. If I consider this force P, again the effect of this force about this MN will be in clockwise direction. Therefore it will become P into X. Therefore bending moment, as per the definition, the bending moment is nothing but it's an internal resistance developed by the section to counteract the external bending moment, and mathematically it is equal to the algebraic sum of all the moment which are acting on one side of the section. Remember that this bending moment, it is also known as the unbalanced moment which are acting on to the beam section. Now we will discuss the concept of the shear force. Shear force is defined as the internal resistance developed to counteract the shearing action due to the external load. Just like a bending moment, shear force is also the internal resistance which is developed internally to counteract the external shear force, and mathematically it is given by the algebraic sum of vertical load on one side of the section, and this load, it acts tangential to the cross section. Now we will discuss the concept of the shear force. Suppose this is a beam which is simply supported in this manner. If I consider a section MN, this section MN will separate the beam into two parts, the one left hand side part and the other one is the right hand side part. So this part is the left hand part and the remaining part is nothing but is the right hand part. Now if I consider a beam is subjected to the external load, then suppose this is P1 and this load is RA. This RA is the reaction to the beam which is acting in upward direction, and this P1 which is acting in downward direction, and this both load are acting on left hand side part of the section MN. Now what is shear force? Shear force is equal to the algebraic sum of all the vertical forces on either side of the section. Therefore from figure we have the shear force equal to RA which is acting in upward direction minus P1. We have considered RA as a positive because it is acting in upward direction. We have considered P1 as a negative which is acting in downward direction. Therefore, as per the definition of the shear force, it is the internal resistance developed to counteract the shearing action of external load. Means this is the internal resistance developed to counteract the external shearing force. This is the definition of the shear force. Now we will discuss the concept of moment of force. To discuss the concept of moment of force, first of all we will concentrate on point A. Suppose this is point A and that particular point, it is separated by a distance d and it is subjected to a load F. This is a load which is acting in upward direction, and that particular load has a distance of d from point A. Now, what is moment of a force? If forces acting on a finite size body, they may produce the turning effect. Remember that in short, moment of a force is nothing but it is the turning effect produced by that particular force. This is measured by the moment of the force. Therefore, mathematically, the turning effect can be given by this force which is acting in upward direction and it is separated by a distance d from point A. This force about A will act in clockwise direction. Therefore, force into perpendicular distance, this force into perpendicular distance d is nothing but the moment of force. If it is acting in clockwise direction, we can consider it as a positive or negative. And if it is acting in anti-clockwise direction, in that case also we can consider it as positive or negative. It means that the sense of rotation will be positive or negative depending upon whether it produces clockwise moment or anti-clockwise moment. From figure, F is nothing but the magnitude of the force. It may be in Newton or kilonewton, and d is the perpendicular distance from A. Now we will discuss the concept of radius of gyration. What is the radius of gyration? The distance from an axis at which the mass or entire area of the body may be assumed to be concentrated. Radius of gyration, it is the distance from the axes. If I consider x and y axis which are perpendicular to each other, then from that axis it is the distance at which the entire mass is assumed to be concentrated, where the entire mass get concentrated at a single point, and at which the moment of inertia will be equal to the moment of inertia of the actual mass about that axis. Mathematically, radius of gyration is given by Rxx, which is equal to under root of Ixx upon A. Mathematically, radius of gyration is denoted by the letter small r, and if I consider radius of gyration about xx axis, then Rxx is equal to under root of Ixx upon A, where Ixx is nothing but the moment of inertia about xx axis and A is nothing but the area of that particular figure. In the same manner, if I consider radius of gyration about yy axis, then we have under root of Iyy upon A, where Iyy is nothing but the moment of inertia about yy axis and area is nothing but it is the area of the figure. If I put the value of Iyy, all of we know that moment of inertia, it is in mm cube or meter cube or centimeter cube, divided by area, it is in mm square or meter square. If I solve it for the under root, then we have the unit of radius of gyration as mm or centimeter. Now we will discuss the concept of second moment of area. Remember that second moment of area, it is also known as moment of inertia. Now before that we have discussed about the moment of the force and radius of gyration. The moment of all of you know that the moment of force is given by m is equal to F into d, means the moment about any point is equal to the product of force into the perpendicular distance between force and that particular point. Mathematically, moment of force is given by F is equal to m is equal to F into d. This is the first moment of force. If this equation is again multiplied by a perpendicular distance, then we will have a second moment of force. Therefore, F into d, it will give you the value of second moment of force. Therefore, m is equal to F into d square. Now, if I replace force by area or mass, then we have first moment of area. In the first, we have first moment of force, that is M is equal to F into D. If I replace force by the area or the mass, then we have first moment of area, that is A into X. If I multiply this term by again a perpendicular distance x, I have second moment of area, which is also known as moment of inertia. Therefore, we will have second moment of area or moment of inertia is equal to ax into x. Remember that we have multiplied x to the first moment of area. So first moment of area is nothing but ax into x. It will give you the value of ax square, where x is the center of gravity, distance of center of gravity. If I put the value of area and the perpendicular distance, then we have the unit of moment of inertia mm raised to 4 or meter raised to 4 or centimeter raised to 4. We can express moment of inertia in term of mm also, in term of meter also, or in term of centimeter also. It is mm raised to 4, centimeter raised to 4 or meter raised to 4. Therefore, the statement of moment of inertia is the second moment of area is defined as the summation of areas time to the distance squared from a fixed axis. That is, it is a summation of y square into d, or we can consider as a ax square also. This is the definition of second moment of area. Now we will discuss about the concept of perpendicular axis theorem. What is the statement of perpendicular axis theorem? The sum of the moment of inertia about any two axes. It is the sum of moment of inertia about any two axes in the plane is equal to the moment of inertia about an axis perpendicular to the plane. That is, if I consider this is x axis and this is y axis. Therefore, the statement of perpendicular axis theorem is that the sum of the moment of inertia about any two axes, means we have considered x axis and y axis. Therefore, the sum of moment of inertia about any two axes is equal to the moment of inertia about an axis perpendicular to the plane, means it is perpendicular to the third plane, and that is it is z1. Remember that moment of perpendicular axis theorem, in that case we have three axes being concurrent, means that particular three axes must pass through a single point. It is mathematically given by j is equal to ixx plus iyy, where j is equal to polar moment of inertia. This is all about the perpendicular axis theorem. Now we will discuss about the parallel axis theorem. The statement of the parallel axis theorem is as follows. The moment of inertia about any axis, is equal to the moment of inertia about axis, parallel axis through the centroid, plus the area times the square of the distance between the axes. It means that the moment of inertia about any axis, suppose that this is zz axis, which is shown by red line. This is zz axis. The moment of inertia about any axis, means in our case it is zz axis, so it is denoted by izz. About any axis is equal to the moment of inertia about a parallel axis. To z axis we have the parallel axis xx, the moment of inertia about the parallel axis, and it is ixx through the centroid, means this xx is passing through the center of gravity through the centroid, plus the area times the square of the distance between these two axes. It means that if we have to apply the parallel axis theorem, we have to consider any axis zz, it is izz, is equal to the moment of inertia about the parallel axis which is passing through the centroid. So this line xs is passing through the centroid, and we have to consider the moment of inertia of that particular axis. It is Ixx plus the area times the square of the distance between the axes plus AH square, where A is the area of the figure. Today this is all about the parallel axis theorem. Today we will stop here. In the next lecture we will discuss about the concept of moment of inertia for various cross section, the concept of theory of simple bending, and what is neutral layer and neutral axis. Thank you.